Welcome to the Growth Shift. I'm David Zylstra. Here's what I've learned after years in business. Every leader who's built something meaningful has a story, but the moment they had to shift, when failure forced innovation, when change became opportunity, when they chose growth over comfort. On this show, we dive into those pivotal moments, the setbacks that became breakthroughs, the strategic shifts that accelerated growth, and the frameworks that turn obstacles into opportunities. Because here's the truth. In a world where change is the only constant, the leaders who thrive aren't the ones who avoid failure. They're the ones who've learned to shift strategically through it. So whether you're facing your own pivot point or just want to learn from someone who's been there, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Ready?
Yep.
This episode is brought to you by Valentix. At Valentix, we help coaches and consultants who are struggling with generating consistent, high-quality leads, automating their client onboarding processes, and scaling their operations without simply adding more hours or headcount. Most of the time, our clients come to us frustrated because they're bogged down in manual tasks and feel like they're missing out on the power of modern technology. But with the right strategy and AI-powered solutions, they're able to streamline their workflows, attract better opportunities, and achieve sustainable growth. If that sounds like you or someone you know, learn more at valentix.io. Now let's dive into today's episode. Today on the Growth Shift, we are thrilled to welcome Ursula Podium, the visionary founder of Profound Growth. Ursula's journey is a powerful testament to intentional transformation. Having navigated significant geographical and career shifts, ultimately finding her calling in coaching and human development. With over 26 years of experience, Ursula brings a unique blend of neuroscience research and coaching expertise, helping individuals and organizations understand neuroplasticity to overcome ingrained habits and drive profound change. Her insights into how internal and external influences compel us to pivot and her focus on intentional, mindful growth make her an extremely important guide for our audience. Ursula, welcome to the Growth Shift.
Thank you, David. Thank you for the beautiful introduction. I appreciate it. I'm delighted to be here.
You have a fascinating journey, marked by significant geographical, yes, and career shifts from working in real estate in Canada to now leading Profound Growth for over 26 years. Could you share a little bit about what your foundational experiences or principles from your early career, particularly your passion for human development, ultimately led you to embrace coaching and
Yeah.
integrate neuroscience?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question in terms of, how did I get here? And sometimes I look back at my life and wonder that myself. I think my original passion for human development dates back 45 years. I used to work in a leadership position in the hotel industry. And as part of that, was often in charge of training, leadership development, and things like that. So really, from my earliest days of my career until now, how to develop humans in a way that's inspiring and serves them and also serves the enterprise, the organization, has always been fascinating to me. So the hotel industry was my first love. I worked in Germany, in England, in Belgium. Then we moved to Canada. And because of this constant moving from country to country and having a husband who is in the hotel industry, there came a moment when I had to decide whose career would take the lead. There wasn't room for both of us to constantly, move countries because eventually we would end up in two very different locations. And I decided, well, did I want a career in the hotel industry or did I want to stay married? So marriage won out. So as we were then moving to other countries, including Vancouver and Toronto, I constantly had to look at, well, how am I going to reinvent myself now? And that led me to work in real estate. When we moved to Toronto, I was the licensed assistant to a very well-known, high-powered real estate agent. And then came another move. We moved to the United States. And quite honestly, at that time, I was thoroughly sick and tired with having to reinvent myself over and over and over again. While there are blessings in the reinvention of you, it can also be really, really tiring. So when we moved to the United States, I took a year off and said to my husband, I'm going to take a year off and really decide what do I want to do with the rest of my life. And it has to be portable. I have to be able to take this business and take it with me because I couldn't see ourselves staying in the same location now for the next 30 years. I mean, that's just, diplomatic service, military, hotel industry, it's move, 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 move. So I took a year off, and as often the universe will have it, we ask for insights and the universe delivers. So I saw an article in the local newspaper about coaching, and you have to remember 26 years ago, coaching was a fairly unknown way of working with humans other than in sports. So I took a year-long training program, got certified as a professional coach through the Coaches Training Institute, and then started my own business. But the challenge then was, not only did I need to tell people what I was doing, I also first needed to explain what coaching was. Because if and when I said, I'm a professional coach, people would always say, tennis, golf, baseball, basketball. It's like, no, none of that. It's personal and professional coaching. And so that's the relief I have now. And I think especially I think over the last maybe 10, 11 years, where coaching really has entered the mainstream of people's consciousness individually as well as in organization, that at least I don't have to explain anymore what coaching is, and I can go right to, I'm a certified coach working with, fill in the blank. So talk about demographic shifts and reinventing yourself. And then really, when you think about it, my passion of human development in the hotel industry actually led me right back to coaching, which is really about human development. And when I found coaching and realized it was actually a thing, not just something that somebody dreamt up, that it was actually a real thing, a real job, a real profession, I felt like I had just come home. It was a complete fit, and then it was just a question of, now I'm a certified coach, now what?
So you started in the hospitality industry, right? And
Yes.
working in hotels. And, I've got about a decade of experience in the industry myself. But, from there, with your focus on human development within the hotel industry, you moved into real estate. And then after that, you reassessed. Things had to change. Along the way, you reinvented yourself multiple times. So surely you learned an extreme amount about, human development through that process as well, with the different careers you've had, the moves that you've made. You went into taking a coaching course for a year as well. So you had your own personal experiences along the way. And yes, you got certified, but I have a feeling that there was quite a bit you took from the hotel industry that really equipped you to become a powerful coach. I mean, within hospitality specifically, developing humans for leadership potential is a challenge, right? Most people, if you're not too familiar, I mean, the hospitality and hotel industry attracts a certain type of person. One who likes to party, one who likes to have fun, one who values living a fast life and experiences and moving all the time. So these are often people who don't think long term, right? Who like to stay up late, make short-term decisions and all of this. So I imagine, Ursula, developing leaders and humans within that industry was an extreme challenge at times that really equipped you to become, again, an extremely powerful coach today. From that time that you had, coaching humans within the hotel industry, what do you think were some of the most impactful lessons that you learned, in hindsight, that perhaps you didn't realize how much they were going to equip you for the future?
Yeah, David, what I really learned about the hotel industry and people within it and developing it was, so number one, you're absolutely right. They are often of a certain age. So really young people that are starting, like, for example, as a server in a restaurant. And then, the hotel industry, unfortunately, has a little bit of a tendency to take youngsters and then, they're really good servers, they're really good with clients, and, people go, they're so good at that, they should be a manager. And it's like, no, 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 no. They're good servers, they're good with guests, but that doesn't necessarily make them good managers. So, really looking at what makes you good at your job is different from what makes you good as a manager. And that is one thing that I still see, in the clients that I coach now, who are often leaders who deal with similar issues. They have a young team, they want to promote a young person with potential who are really good at their job. But then the question is, that's one thing, but what can make them also a good leader of humans? So that's definitely something that I learned in the hotel industry. Now, the good thing about people in the hotel industry is because of their multicultural way of living, moving to different countries, many different cultures often working together in the same hotel, the same department, I actually saw that it is possible to do that without conflict. I found people in the hotel industry adaptable, flexible, and incredibly open. And that is something that I think is, somewhat unique to that industry because people are moving around all the time. Now, back to fast forward to today, what I'm seeing is that the less people are open to taking risks in terms of change, the harder it is then also to change, because you don't have any data in your brain that goes back to, oh, I've done this before, therefore I can do it again. So that flexibility and adaptability really serves humans.
I think this is where that neuroscience comes into play with your coaching as well. Ursula, tell us a little bit more then, profound growth. You leverage neuroscience research and, different perspectives to help individuals and organizations understand themselves better and to drive transformation. What is it you're actually doing with clients? What does that look like?
So I help them really understand the various aspects of the brain, because it's not just one piece. I use the metaphor of the orchestra as being either a team or an orchestra. It's basically all these different places of the brain that have a way of guiding and directing how we think, our emotions, how we either react or are more mindful about what we do. So it's a very complex, interrelated system. And what I help my clients do in a sort of really fundamental way, so please, listeners, do understand that I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm a translator of applied neuroscience, which is very different from being a neuroscientist. We understand the mechanics, the research behind the different aspects of the brain. So you mentioned neuroplasticity. We know what the research on neuroplasticity shows us, but then we also translate that information and make it applicable. So I make it applicable to this human by saying, here is the mechanics of what's happening in your brain in terms of change. And therefore, if you understand that, here is a direction your brain needs now to go. There needs to be a rewiring needs to take place. And so it's neuroplasticity. It's about the right and left hemisphere of the brain. It's the networks. And then, of course, the aspect that often we forget is the brain in here and the body connection. It's like, I think in our more Western culture, particularly in organizations, we sort of get cut off a little bit here. We think that's where all the smartness happens. And what we forget is that we need to involve the body, because the body holds recognition and wisdom that the brain alone just can't do. So I help them really differentiate all these different aspects of the brain, and then I make it applicable and simplify it so that they can understand it. And then each aspect of the brain has a tool that they can use then with themselves, and depending on what position they have, also potentially help others. Because once you understand what's going on in here, in this system of you have a much better understanding of why people do the things they do and why they say the things they say. It gives you just a deeper understanding of human behavior.
So we have this analogy of, viewing the brain and what's going on it as an orchestra, right? Of course, everything has to work together.
Yes.
You mentioned brain to body connection, right? We're talking about understanding the workings of one's mind from a mechanical level and how that impacts the body. This is all pretty high level stuff, Ursula. Do you have perhaps a story that you could share with us to, make this seem and feel a little bit more practical for the audience? How is it that perhaps you came in and you helped a business client, take this approach to achieving a significant transformation?
Yeah, it's there's so many examples. I don't know which to pick, but I am currently working with a leader that has a fairly small team. There's 6 or 7 people, and she came to me wanting to really be more empowering to the team because she felt so overwhelmed by the workload, didn't know how to delegate that in a way that would serve her because she has a certain way of doing things. And she would say, I don't understand why they don't understand this. I don't understand why they can't do it this way, because that's the way I do it, and I know that's the really good way of doing it. So what we looked at was at how do the hemispheres of the brain, so the right and left hemisphere, how do they process information? So very briefly and high level, left hemisphere processes information in terms of specifics and data. The right hemisphere processes information in terms of holistic big picture. So it's more connected also to the body and really sees everything sort of very holistically. And the left hemisphere narrows everything down. When this part of your orchestra works well, the left hemisphere can give you structure, and the right hemisphere can give you freedom and connection to relationships. So working together, so these two parts of your brain, when they work together, it's really effective because we need both. We need to have structure and we need to be connected. In the ineffective space, the left hemisphere has a tendency to rigidity because it narrows everything down, and you narrow until it gets so narrow, it gets really rigid. And the right hemisphere, because it takes everything in, has a tendency to chaos. Because think about everything is coming in, all the emails, all the data, all the conversations, and over time it gets so chaotic, people literally don't know anymore which one to pick. So in her case, I shared with her just very high level, here is what your brain is doing. This is your right and your left hemisphere. And in terms of your team, you are seeing things are just a little bit too narrow. That keeps you into, I don't understand why they're doing it, and why can't they do it my way? And I know how to do this. So for her to understand that she needs to connect the structure, the left hemisphere, to the more holistic side of her brain really helped her see that if she would focus also on relationship and seeing the bigger picture, it would enable her to talk to her team members in a slightly different way. She would be able to delegate more because now it's not, it's my way or the highway. It's more like there's more than one way of doing it. And that was really helpful because over time, she trained her team to really start looking for their own solutions. So she empowered them to say, well, there's more than one way. You try your way, then come back, and then we'll see what happened. And so over time, it really helped her then delegate more and reduce her own stress level and reduce her own workload. So that's one example, I think, that really supported her growth as a leader, because she realized she couldn't keep going like this because there was just too much going on.
So it seems like many people, and I recognize this in myself, and I think some of the audience have heard this as well. Many people have a tendency to be either left-brained or right-brained, right? What you naturally align with, right? Whether it's, process-oriented or a little bit more on the artistic side of things, or a little bit more in that direction anyway. So it sounds like what you do is perhaps you help people identify their strengths and their tendencies on one side and then strike a balance, right, to
Yes.
help level them out. And because strengths, yes, they can be relied on, but sometimes strengths can also become setbacks as well if you rely on them too much. So it sounds like what you do is you come in and you work with clients to help them strike that balance and create perhaps more synergy in this orchestra of their brain.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of the hemispheres, what is true is that the brain uses both the right and the left hemisphere in almost everything we do. However, because of neuroplasticity and the reward we receive through how we do things, there is more of a tendency to lean more one way or the other. So when you think about, for example, an accountant, accountants are being rewarded for being very specific. I could never be an accountant. I look at my bank account and I go, oh yeah, another dollar here or a couple of cents, never mind. It's all good. That's holistic, that's big picture. It's like, yeah, big picture, it's all good. Well, an accountant can't do this. They have to be to the cent. And so over time, that working with details and specific and with the analysis of things starts strengthening those neural pathways that then become sort of our comfort zone. And so that's really what we're talking about here, that somebody that's been rewarded for that kind of thinking can lose a little bit of the accessibility of the right hemisphere. And you're absolutely right. My job is to help them see it and then help them create that balance. So well said, David.
Ursula, how it is that you help clients is, of course, it's extremely valuable, but it's, we could say, atypical, right? Not many business leaders are seeking out help with their internal workings. A lot of people seem to focus on, help with their marketing or the business structure and operations. And of course, what you do really plays into that. But a lot of coaches out there right now perhaps fall into line with your position, right? They have an incredible service and an incredible way of helping clients achieve remarkable results. But there's a lot of challenges that people are facing right now, regardless of that, right? There's a ton of noise and market saturation. There's a lot of
Yes.
competition. And there's a lot of
Yes.
people that they're trying to get that attention from, but who might not understand the value of what they can actually do.
Yep.
From your perspective, as somebody with a specialized service that integrates neuroscience, truly or certainly, building trust with people and making a connection for them to truly understand you is vital for being able to bridge that gap and attract new clients.
Yes.
From your perspective, what are your thoughts around these challenges that professionals in a similar position to you are up against right now? What are you observing in the market for coaches trying to gain exposure?
It's a really good point, David, particularly in terms of the noise. And even though I've been doing this for 26 years, so I'm in the very fortunate position that, my business now thrives on referrals, which, of course is obvious. When you've been doing this for so long, your clients will refer other people. But even I'm not immune to the challenges and the noise. I am on LinkedIn, which I've started to really just focus on one social media platform, and for me that's LinkedIn. So maybe that's a piece of advice, especially when you're starting out as a coach, is really decide what works for you. Facebook didn't work for me. Instagram is not working, and there's then also too much noise. Now think about again right hemisphere and the incoming information that gets processed. If you're on too many social media platforms, all of a sudden you will find yourself in chaos. And so I had to narrow it down a little bit and really decide, okay, what will really work for me? And so the two things that I have found are really working for me are really just in alignment with what I love to do. And I love to talk, as you can tell. I am not a good writer. Writing is painful to me. So being on podcasts, doing free webinars, speaking wherever I can, whether it's paid or unpaid, those are great ways to create publicity, PR, and create my visibility. But I do it because I love it. So I have discovered years ago that when I try and do something because I should, it never goes anywhere. I try and do it, and it's like, oh no, I can't. And so it's stutter steps. But when I find that I'm finding something that I really love, like for example, podcasts, the more the merrier. And that is something that I want everybody to really understand and encourage to do. Find the thing that you are passionate about, because that will keep you going. And it's related to the brain. The brain likes to be rewarded. It likes to act, the dopamine activation system. It likes that. It likes the stimulation. It likes the dopamine. And when you don't have that, things get hard, they get boring, and it begins to be a struggle. And from there, creativity, it's just much harder to access.
I love this insight and perspective, right? Focusing on what you're passionate about and really doubling down on that, right? And as it comes to the world of, marketing and social media, again, focusing in, right? The more you try and spread your efforts across every platform, the less you're actually going to be able to achieve, right? So with focus and concerted effort on what you actually enjoy doing, things become easier all across the board. Ursula, you mentioned you're doing a number of things on LinkedIn right now, free and live webinars. You're doing a lot of podcasts and looking for speaking engagements as well. These are great actions that you're taking, but is there anything that you can give to the audience around the strategy, even an actionable strategy that you're taking to LinkedIn to help spread your voice and really be able to grow your business further, that perhaps the audience can look to for some direction?
Yeah, what's interesting about David, you would think I'd figured this out like 20 years ago. So again, advice to all of you out there. It will take time for you to figure out, number one, what works for you, what are you passionate about, and then finding a strategy to make that happen again and again. A couple of years ago, I realized that my social media presence was non-existent. And quite honestly, it was about fear. So just a heads up, even though I've been doing this for years and years, when I thought about putting myself out there on LinkedIn and giving my work a voice, my own unique voice, it was like, oh my God, if somebody reads that, and what if I'm wrong, and what if they don't like it? There was all that going on, which I'm sure you all can identify with. And at the beginning of that year, a couple of years ago, I just set the intention on saying, this year, I will increase my LinkedIn presence. And I will do it in a way that serves me the best. And so it led me to podcasts, and then distilling the messages from the podcasts, and then creating a posting that basically distills the content of the podcast. Now, we have AI now, which a couple of years ago when I was doing that, I again was thinking it's hard for me to write that by myself. So I hired someone. I hired a brilliant young woman who is an exceptional writer. And not only that, but she got me. She understood my voice, who I am, the energy, what I'm trying to say. So us working together has been such a gift. Now, if you don't have the financial resources to do this, now AI, I think, is actually a great support. It's an assistant. I actually call it AA, artificial assistant.
Amazing.
Because now I can put the sort of the summary into AI and say, here's the summary.
Ursula, I'm going to interject here. We're going to take a step back, and then we're going to dive into AI, because I really want to highlight something there that you said that is really important, and I think the audience should pay attention to, right? You leaned into what you enjoy doing, right? And you really found a way to leverage that to create more opportunity, or to leverage it to do the things that perhaps you didn't enjoy doing as a result,
Yes.
right? So you're doing podcasts and you're having conversations, and now from what you enjoy doing, you're leveraging AI and you're using AI to support you in all the things that, perhaps are low leverage tasks or things that, you just really won't get up in the day and want to do. So then now tell us a little bit more. How is it that you're using AI for the leverage to get rid of the tasks or to actually get the tasks done that you wouldn't want to do otherwise?
Well, it's really, that whole thing is really fascinating even to me because I consider myself an AI newbie. So a couple of months ago, I was doing a training for a global firm. And I had my content. I knew what I was wanting to say, what I wanted to do, and then I needed to create a really nice PowerPoint. Wonderful business partner who, for all our trainings, she does all the PowerPoints because she's just brilliant. She's an artist. She just does a wonderful job. And I thought, I have to do a PowerPoint here. And I thought, I wonder what AI has to say about that. So I put in my content, my data, the things I wanted to say. And then I just said, I would like you to create a PowerPoint. Boom. There it was at 15 slides. And now all I needed to do was move the slides around, edit the content, again, use a co-pilot to create different colors and different design. And it was literally within 2 hours. I had a really, really, really nice PowerPoint. This, a couple of years ago, would have taken me days. And I was so excited. That tells you what newbie I am about this. I went to my husband and said, you wouldn't believe what just happened. Look at this PowerPoint. This just took me an hour and a half using AI. And he looked at it and he said, really? Oh, wow, this is amazing. So it saved me time. It gave me an opportunity to edit and shift and move things around. But with the help of my artificial assistant, it became such a time saver. And the same is true for the summary of the podcast and then creating a nice LinkedIn post. I edit everything to make sure it really is my voice that is speaking through, but the amount of time it saves me is unbelievable.
As a time saver, AI, it's fantastic, right? You can use it to transcribe videos,
Yep.
create content,
Yeah.
create PowerPoints and all of this as well. And I think most of the audience are already doing a lot of these things. But however, that doesn't negate a concern that many coaches have right now. And I know there's mixed opinions and feelings on this, but a
Yes.
lot of coaches and a lot of people in general are sitting now thinking, am I going to be replaced by AI? Now, Ursula, I know you don't believe so, right? AI at the end of the day is excellent for tasks, but it cannot replace that deep human connection, the intuition, and the embodied presence required for effective coaching, as I
Yes.
know you believe. From your perspective, how do you see AI impacting the coaching industry, both positively and negatively?
On the positive side, as you said, David, it is a time saver. I think it will help also with communication in terms of coach to client. If you are a note taker and you have a tendency to send a synopsis of your summary of your notes to the client, that will help. So there's many time saving opportunities using AI. The downside is that when we are, I might be wrong about this, but it's my perspective. So I give you that. So bear with me. I think when AI starts creating your voice, like your speaking voice, and then it communicates with your client through your voice, that is, I think, when it gets dangerous because the client could potentially identify what your AI voice is telling them with you. I think there is also from an ethical standpoint in terms of coaches. So the International Coach Federation is our governing body. They have just released a 3-part series on AI in coaching, which was very interesting, really encouraging coaches to look at AI in terms of support, time saving. But they are also saying, remember that it is not a human. It is artificial intelligence. It cannot replace, as you said, your intuition. We feel each other through our body, through our mirror neuron system. That is something that is unique to us as humans. So I will continue to use AI for my time-saving measures, but I will be very, very mindful and careful how to use it when it comes to speaking voice, communicating with clients, other than saying, AI has just generated this summary for you. I will be completely upfront whether I've written it or AI has written it, because the clients deserve to know that. So there are no misunderstandings. Does that make sense to you, David?
Oh, it absolutely does, right? Especially with the mirror neurons, I think is what you said, right? Like when you're working with a person and speaking with an actual person, there is an energy there, even if it's across a screen at the end of the
Yes.
day. And
Yeah.
I still have a hard time seeing, and who knows? Again, I don't know what the future is going to look like, but I have a hard time seeing a world where AI can truly replace the human connection that's necessary in coaching, right? To build trust, to replace intuition. I have a hard time seeing that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's, and then the great thing as well as the challenge of us humans is that we're really, really complex. We're not, there isn't a formula. I mean, I have a lot of clients and there are not one is like the other. They're all completely different in terms of mindset, viewpoints, how they do things, and even the topics they bring to coaching. So, that complexity that shows up in coaching really takes an intuitive and fully present human being to make that connection. And also, coaches listen to what the client is saying, but we're also listening to what the client is not saying. And I don't think AI can do that.
Well, time will have to tell. Ursula, your insights into neuroplasticity, mindset, and the power of understanding ourselves are truly profound. To conclude, based on your philosophy of embracing change and leveraging neuroscience for personal growth, what's the single most important piece of advice that you'd offer to our audience who are striving to expand their capacity, navigate change, and achieve sustainable growth in their business and lives?
I think one of the things that I would really give as advice is when it comes to change, especially in this ever changing and really fast changing world that we are in, remember that all the habits, our comfort zone, the way we like to do things is simply a way the brain has wired in your habits. And whatever you're trying to change, be patient. It will take time, because if you think about, you've done something for 20 years, it is going to take a lot longer than 3 months to change and rewire that habit. So whatever you're trying to do a little bit every day, tiny baby steps, which the brain really likes. It doesn't like the overwhelm of, 15 different things. Decide on one or two things and then really work at that every day in small increments. And don't forget that the brain likes to be rewarded. So find something that helps you feel you did a good job, reward yourself, fulfillment, passion, meaning, purpose. All those things are great ways to tap into the dopamine neurotransmitter, because that's really what keeps us going, finding that match of meaning, purpose, and what we're doing. And that will help manage change no matter what you're trying to do.
Ursula, thank you so much for your insights and your advice for the audience today. For any of our audience who might like to connect with you to learn more about what you're doing or to even continue the conversation, what would be the best way to find you?
Well, LinkedIn, of course, there we have it. It is Ursula Pottinger, and then I have a website. It's profoundgrowth.com. The podcasts are on there, as well as a really, really lovely ebook that I have created called Executive Presence Plus. So it's really about leadership in terms of presence, communication, gravitas, and calmness. So really putting something together with some tips in there. So if you are a leader and you're looking for a deeper presence for you as a leader, there is an ebook on my website. It's right on the homepage that you can access for free.
Thanks again for joining us on the Growth Shift today.
Thank you so much, David. Appreciate you very much.
And that's a wrap on another episode of the Growth Shift. If this conversation sparked something for you, whether it's a new perspective on failure, a strategy you want to try, or just the reminder that every setback can become a setup for something bigger, hit that subscribe button and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, the leaders who thrive aren't the ones who avoid change. They're the ones who shift strategically through it. If you're ready to build the systems that help you grow without the chaos, head over to valentix.io. We help businesses like yours scale smarter, not harder. I'm David Zylstra, and I'll see you in the next shift.